Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. It is the final preview of the 16-17 pre-season because all the leagues are off and running as of this weekend, if not sooner. Of course, a few started last weekend as well. As you will be aware, we have ploughed through the EFL, the Premier League, La Liga, Liga, and the Bundesliga. So that leaves just one. And as usual, I will be your host, Kris, and I couldn't think of anyone better to invite along with me this evening than our Italian hipster himself, Mr. John Welsh. Good evening, John.
Good evening. I love the way you said that, kind of waylaying the fact that we couldn't get a pro on for this one because no one was
Well,
available.
I have to say the lovely Mina Rizuki, she's actually sent a heartfelt apology. She sent me an email the other day, and she was due to do this pod with us earlier on the summer, but she's been absolutely snowed under. So she sends her apologies, but she said she will promise she will come back on this season. She owes us one, so that's nice of her.
Just to
So
gloat about Juventus at some point, surely.
more than likely, yeah, more than likely. Rumor has it she's having 4 dinners with Gonzalo Higuain, but more on that later. Right, John. So it's just me and Yi tonight. So we're just going to kind of plough through it. Now, we're recording this quite late. We're doing this day before the season begins in Italy. So nothing like leaving the best to last. What we're going to do is just plough through the teams, much like we've done over the other games or over the other game previews or the season previews, I should say. So I'm going to let you choose as the guest. Do you want to start at the top or the bottom?
Well, I guess everyone really probably wants to talk about Juve. They've been the most active club, I guess.
Let's talk about Juve then. Should we run through their? It would be rude of us not to run through their summer business first of all, wouldn't it? Because it is absolutely, well, just bizarre in a good way. Their signings: Gonzalo Higuain, who we just mentioned, £76.5 million is the rumoured fee. Miralem Pjanic, which we'll definitely talk about in a minute, 27.2 million. Marco Piazza, the Croatian left winger, 19.55. Mario Lemina, which was a deal already kind of done with Marseille, which has been rubber stamped. Simone Gans, who I must confess I hadn't heard a lot about, from Como. And Dani Alves, one of the best free transfers probably of the off-season. Losing Paul Pogba, of course, we know about. Alvaro Morata has returned to Real Madrid. And they've also lost the likes of Mauricio Isla, Gabriel, one of their young talents, and a few others. Who I don't think many people know. Martin Caceres, probably the most famous of the free agents now as well. So, first question to you, I suppose. What do you make of all this summer change? Because I think I was listening to Football Weekly today. I think it was James Horncastle thinks Juventus are now the 4th biggest side in Europe. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there was an interesting article by Paolo Bandini actually in The Guardian talking about how Juve sort of took Bayern Munich's model, and they got a new stadium. They finally got their own stadium, so they could get some more money in. Invested in their youth development and loaning out the right players and doing deals with clubs like Sassuolo and Empoli and people like that. And now got to the point where they've won so many leagues that they've earned so much money that they can go and spend big money and buy the best players from their closest rivals. So Higuain, obviously from Napoli, who had the goal-breaking record season. Pjanic, probably the best midfielder in Serie A. Debatable between him and Pogba was sort of the argument. Now Pogba's gone, so probably is Pjanic. There was one player actually you left off the list of transfers, Mehdi Benatia, coming back to Serie A.
Good shout.
Obviously
Yes.
they got from Bayern Munich on one of those interesting 2-year loan, then option to buy deals that they seem to like doing. So it's really impressive from Juve. I think the big question is what effect will Higuain coming in have on the team, and how much of an impact will Pogba going have? I don't think Pogba leaving is as big a deal as some Juve fans might make out. He's a very good player and he was great for Juve, but they got an awful lot of money for a player that they basically got for free. They had to pay some compensation, I think, to Man United. But, they've got all that money and they've replaced him with... he's a very different player in Pjanic, who, everyone would have seen, but his technical ability and the influence he can have on a game, he can have a greater overall influence. He wouldn't do something individually the way Pogba would. But, Pjanic really will, I think he'll thrive there. The question is, where does Higuain fit in? Because he's always sort of played in a front three with sort of two wide men or two attacking mids either side of him. And it's not really a system that Juve use. So how do you fit him in with Dybala? There'll be a great link up there, but trying to get that balance right will be really interesting. I'm still curious to see how it will go. The big thing with them is they've spent that money because they want to win the Champions League. That's their big push now. Serie A is sort of, they kind of see it as wrapped up every season as it should be. However, Higuain will certainly need to trim down a little bit from his summer feeding, or I don't know what he's been doing, but yeah.
He does look like he's had a rather enjoyable summer. I did actually read recently that ahead of the first game of the season, there's talk that they might not even play him because they're quite happy with how Dybala and Mandzukic are performing. So there's quite a lot of money to spend for a player who might just make the bench. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but, I think that sort of shows the level of the way Juventus are now. Italian football certainly lost kind of its sparkle for a few years, and when the Bundesliga took one of its Champions League spots, it kind of got downgraded again, and people kind of forgot about it. But it's starting to push up there, and it's more than anything, it's down to Juventus and the way they've started to perform in Europe and the things they've done. But yeah, Allegri will be ruthless. If Higuain isn't fit enough and not performing, then he just simply won't play. It's that easy for him. So Mandzukic and Dybala did it last season. There's no reason they can't do it again. But it'll be a very interesting start to the season because there's definitely going to have to be some sort of system change, I would have thought, from Juve if they're going to try and work those both into the team.
Yeah, and just very quickly, for me, I wouldn't say he's gone under the radar, but Milan Pjanic, for me, still one of the best midfielders in world football, let alone Europe. And he's gone for sort of 27 million quid. Not only that, from a rival. That's a hell of a signing, isn't it, for such a talented player?
Yeah, I'm amazed no one else was in for him. To be, I don't know whether it was the player himself just wanted to stay in Italy. Juventus is a very hard club to turn down, to be honest. But that is absolutely wonderful, and the sort of early link-up play I've seen between him, and obviously that is only in friendlies, but between him and Dybala, Dani Alves as well. I know people will say because of his age, but for a free signing, they did it before Juve when they got Patrice Evra, and it just made that defence so much better. And what he gives you going forwards, and another option for that right side, whether they do play as a back five, using him as a wing back, or they go to a back four system. You can just see Pjanic hitting those balls out to Alves making a run, who can then hit the pullback. It's going to be really good to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly a team, as you say, that will be pushing for that Champions League as well as the domestic league. So we'll keep an eye on them. Let's kind of switch gears to another club and have a look at what else is going on in Serie A. I want to go to Roma next, which is kind of one of those clubs that I don't know what it is. A lot of people who maybe don't follow Italian football closely, it's a lot of people as their second team for whatever reason. Luciano Spalletti has been fairly busy in the off season as well, making a few sort of loans permanent and also bringing in a couple of extra players. Do you think that the signing or keeping, I should say, if that's even a phrase, of Raja Nainggolan, do you think that's probably the biggest signing or non-signing they could have made?
Absolutely, because after losing Pjanic, you really need to keep that midfield solid, and he's so key in that. They had their Champions League qualifier, which I can't remember what the final score was now. Was it 3? Was it 3-1?
Porto, wasn't it? I thought it was 1-1.
Porto. Yeah, sorry. They went down. Vermaelen made his debut, didn't he, and got sent off. Yes. Sorry, it wasn't the best best game for Roma, but what it showed was how important Nainggolan was, how important De Rossi still is. Really came on and solidified that midfield. But the big thing actually is Kevin Strootman has finally come back from his injury, who's kind of the forgotten man at Roma, and he made some really tough tackles in that game, and it looked like his leg was holding up. So, although obviously losing Pjanic, you can't really replace that. Spalletti has already come out and said that Strootman is a better player than Pjanic, and obviously it's what you want to hear from your manager, big the team up and say there's still confidence in them. But to be able to keep him and Nainggolan and hopefully have the pair of them fit for the coming season is really important. It's strange, Roma, because, as you say, most of their signings have been just previous players who were at the club just on loan and now made permanent. And they haven't really made any huge moves. They do have a problem at left back at the moment, though. Digne has obviously not come back and has now joined Barcelona. They've got Bruno Perez in from Torino, which is a fantastic signing, and obviously he can play on the left if you really need him to, but he's better on the right. So Florenzi may be chucked onto that side of the pitch until they find a real solution to it. But yeah, I mean, I think the question with Roma is the depth of their squad is the real issue. And again, they still haven't quite solved the striking problem. Will Edin Dzeko miss every single chance that he gets put in front of him as he did last season?
It's a really sort of a strange club, isn't it, Roma? Because there's just so many players coming in and going out all the time. But if you had to put money on it, do you, just sort of talking about Nainggolan in particular, do you still think he's at risk of going in this window? Because he said he wants to stick around, but do you think there's still a risk there?
I mean, if you can never say no in football, because obviously if a club comes in and offers big enough money, then Roma aren't going to turn it down. But I don't think they don't need to sell him, so there's no reason to. And when you look around Europe at the clubs that need midfielders, there's no one really crying out for that type of midfielder at a bigger club, say, than Roma. There's not a Barcelona don't really need one. Madrid. You look at Premier League clubs, no one, Chelsea would have been the obvious one that he was linked to all summer, but Conte seems fairly pleased with the midfielders he's got there. So I hope for Roma's sake he stays anyway. But I won't say never, but I would say it's probably very likely he stays now. If he's going to go in here, maybe January, if not next summer.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on that, definitely. Let's switch gears again to Napoli, who are, of course, one of their big rivals. Now, they've done a bit of business this summer. Obviously, they've got rid of Gonzalo Higuain or moved him on, whatever. Fair to say the natives weren't particularly chuffed at that. What sort of player are they getting in their replacement? Because they've signed Arkadiusz Milik, who didn't exactly have the most prolific Euros, I think it's fair to say. The words Calzaus and Banjo come to mind. But he's a young striker at 22. But the one that really excites me is Zielinski, who you've talked about quite a bit previously. And they've also got Tonelli on a permanent, as well as Emmanuel Giaccherini. So is Zielinski the pick of those four for you? And more importantly, the other question, do they still need a centre-forward who might be in Milan right now?
It's really interesting because Gabbiadini has had a fantastic sort of pre-season. He's getting lots of goals and been playing very well. And, despite the fact that they got Milik for quite a lot of money, there's not really been a lot of talk about him. It's all been Gabbiadini. Is he going to play up front? Will Milik be behind him or sort of playing with him? How much game time will he actually get? Zielinski is the exciting one. Whether he goes straight into the team or not, still to be seen. Giaccherini you'll probably see a lot of because he's a typical Sarri player. You saw how effective he can be when he's got the right motivation behind him, as he had for Italy in the summer. Tonelli's a fantastic signing, especially with the fact that Napoli's still possibly facing the prospect of losing Koulibaly before the window closes. Again, another one that's linked to Chelsea. I'm still not 100% convinced about Napoli's forward line. I still think they need an out-and-out striker. I love Gabbiadini to bits. I think he's brilliant, but he's very much like Milik in the fact I think he's a second striker more than he is a main target man. What may happen is if they don't bring in someone, then you'll see, hopefully for Napoli's sake, more goals from Hamsik and Insigne and those sorts of players. We'll have to get involved more in the goals for the team. But it's exciting because losing a talisman and then saying to the rest of the team, right, you've now got to step your game up. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Which is very much a team in transition. We'll touch on that gentleman in Milan in a bit. We'll come on to him because there's still a lot of rumours swirling around about what might happen. Just pick on another team. I want to pick on Lazio now because they're another team that's a classic Italian name. When you think of Football Italia, you think of Lazio and their famous history. They've been in a bit of a mess for a little while now. Now, they've kept hold of Felipe Anderson at time of recording. I don't know if that might change before the window. They have passed on Antonio Candreva, which we'll come on to. They brought in a few players, Ciro Immobile, Wallace from Braga, Jordan Lukaku's the brother of Romelu at Everton, sorry, and Moritz Leitner, which is an interesting one from Borussia Dortmund. Are Lazio in a position to challenge once again, or do you think it's another season of kind of just adjust to being back to a top six challenger?
Again, it's the club is in. It's not in a mess so much as the fans are just not happy with Latito. Ciro Immobile's an interesting signing. He's done well in Serie A before. Will he work out at Lazio? It kind of makes sense, but they've lost their best player in Candreva, who was really a talisman for the team. There just seems to be no direction and no consistency in the club at all, and it's a real shame because it's such a big name and it's so well known. I don't know a lot about the players they've brought in. Moritz Leitner I know a little bit about, but Wallace and Bastos, who have come in, the defensive pair, I don't know a ton about, I'll be honest. And that's really the sort of problem area they had last season, was in defence. They were leaking a lot of goals. There were key players injured out for a long period. But what Simone Inzaghi will do there, I don't know. What I'd say is that this season, if Lazio get sort of a top 10 finish, maybe pushing for a Europa League spot, that would probably be solid for them. But there's a lot of changes that need to happen at that club. As for the Felipe Anderson saga, have a guess. I've got no idea. Last year he was a Man United player apparently, and now he's still at Lazio, so God knows what's going on there, because apparently he was £50 million player gone signed for Man United. It was all done deal, so I don't know what's happening.
Can't help but think that might have been something to do with the president, whose name escapes me, trying to drum up some interest to maybe flog on a player.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Can't help but think that.
The other big thing as well is obviously the problem with the ultras in the stadium. They still have the partition in the stand, so as it stands at the moment, the ultras are still boycotting this season. So you will sadly see a half-empty Stadio Olimpico right now. Hopefully that will get resolved at some point. Yeah,
that'd be definitely one to keep an eye on. It'd be good to see Lazio back fighting amongst the elite. But speaking of another another household name, Ethan, Fiorentina. Everyone's favourite kit in it. Well, actually, Palermo are close, but we'll stick to purple for Fiorentina for now. The home of Batigol of previous. They've got Paolo Sousa still in charge there. They've again done a bit of business this summer. What do you make of what they've tried to do, what they're trying to do? Likes of Carlos Sanchez coming in from Aston Villa. Christian Tello has gone back there again. One player that really stands out is Yanis Hadji, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the son of Georgi Hadji, the Romanian legend.
Yep.
And also Federico Chiesa, who's also the son of the former Italian international Enrico. So what do you expect to see from maybe those two youngsters and Fiorentina as a whole?
I think, like last season, they were challenging for the title for a period and then dropped off. The fact that they've stuck with their manager, which is something new in Serie A, doesn't always happen. Just look at Palermo. But yeah, the fact they've done that and they've tried to keep the consistency in the same, they're bringing in players who work in that system that Sousa wants to play. So I would actually expect them to be challenging. Probably not for the title, because again, I don't think they've got the squad depth for it, but they will certainly be pushing around, third, fourth. There's a chance of a Champions League spot for them, and if they could do that, that would be really, really big for that club. They need that extra bit of injection of cash to, get some more players in. But it's so difficult this season to see past, because obviously you look at Juventus and then you look at Roma and Napoli as the two big ones. And then you look at someone like Fiorentina and you just think you just haven't quite got enough in reserves. If you pick up an injury, that yes, they've got Bernardeschi, yes, they've got Kalinic, they've got Zarate, they've got players who can do things, but is it enough to take you for a whole season? I don't think. It's just like a top 6 finish for them again would be a really good turnaround for them.
Yeah, they're always a team that capture the imagination. I I think like you, I just look at that squad and I go, is it a bit short? And I don't know about you, I've never been quite convinced with Paulo Sousa. I don't know what it is. It's just something that
he's just got one of those faces.
Yeah, and is it Swansea he was at, wasn't it,
Yeah.
briefly, and didn't really
Well,
work out?
I mean, to be fair, when he was at Swansea, I know lots of people talk about Brendan Rodgers and that kind of thing. It was really Paulo Sousa who started that. I know it's Hugh Jenkins, obviously is the chairman, isn't he, at Swansea?
Yeah.
Who started that sort of turnaround there. But so Sousa was the one who sort of implemented the style of football, and it was all the managers since then that kind of carried it on. So, I mean, he should be given some credit at least for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he doesn't really care what I think, to be fair. So I doubt he's keeping him up at night. But yeah, another club to keep an eye on. Right, let's talk about your favourite team song, shall we? Sassuolo, who at the time of recording, I think last night they got I think it was a 2-0 victory in the Europa League qualifying. Is that going to affect the amazing ride that they've been on, potentially having Europa League football? They actually won 3-0 against the Croatian side, Crvena Zvezda, I believe. That's probably completely wrong. I've done a Danny there, but
No, it was Red Star, Belgrade. They played.
Oh right, of course, yeah, that's their bloody other name, isn't it?
Sorry, that's their proper name. You said their real name. I said their English one.
Yes, we'll go with yours. It's much easier. But yeah, goals from Berardi, Politano, and Defrel, who's a player I really like, by the way. Not because he's French, but I just like him. What do you make of SAS? I mean, have they got enough SAS to fight in 2-3 competitions this season?
Dear.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. It was lined up.
No, I think they're gonna struggle, to be honest. It depends how long they stay in the Europa League. That's going to be really, really difficult. You know, they lost Velasco, whose name I always say wrong. Nicola Sansone obviously left as well. They did manage to keep Berardi, which was a big deal for them. I do think he'll probably be off next summer, to be honest. But I think it's just going to be a step too far. Again, same problem as Fiorentina. It's just squad size. I mean, if they come out of the Europa League early, then, you know, top 10 finish, yeah, it's there for them. But I think the thing with those sorts of clubs are, you always look, because they did so well last season, it's that, can you continue it again? If they dropped and finish 12th or something this season, that's not actually that bad, because just staying in the league itself is one hell of an achievement for a club that size, for the sort of budget they've got. So I'd like to see them do well in Europe and, you know, go as far as possible, just because I think they're an exciting side to watch, and, you know, I really like the manager there. But I think probably for them it's actually best if they came out, you know, get to the group stage, do okay, but just get knocked out in the group stage and then, you know, try and get that top 10 finish again in Serie A would be a very good season for them.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like take stock and just see what you can achieve at a later date. But nevertheless, they're always fun to watch, and we do love that song, don't we?
Yeah. One thing I just remembered, I completely forgot to say about Fiorentina is obviously having Giuseppe Rossi back in the team as well.
Yeah.
You know, trying to fit him in as well will be probably Paulo Sousa's biggest headache, and trying to fit him back into the system.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's of course keeping him fit is a big thing as well for Mr. Rossi. What about Udinese Calcio, to give them their full name? A team that I think it's probably fair to say massively underachieved last season. There is obviously this ongoing thing of Watford, Granada, Pozzo players going here, there, and everywhere. I'm sure our listeners are dying to know, is the prodigal son carrying on up front next season or not? And what do you make of Udinese's summer, and what can they achieve? Because I just thought they were really poor last season.
No, sadly, he's not carrying on up front. Yeah, so, I mean, it's Udinese are one of the clubs that will be just, again, looking to stay in the league, to be perfectly honest. You know, the players they've bought in, you look at some of them, they're, you know, a guy from Chelsea who, I'll be honest, I've never really heard of. Fofana they've brought in, who I know the name, but again, haven't really seen play. Rodrigo de Paul from Valencia. You know, they're all okay players, but they're not amazing. I think the Pozzo family themselves are looking. All their concentration at the moment is on Watford. Because that's where the money is in the Premier League. You see some of the players that they've been linked with, and you know, the money they're spending. That's where their focus is. Udinese are kind of a little bit forgotten. You know, if they can get a player over to Italy from, say, South America, keep him there for a bit, yeah, he does well, and then loan him to Watford or something like that, you know, or Granada, then yeah, that's great. That works out fine for them. But Udinese themselves, I think it will just be struggling towards the bottom of the table yet again, sadly. you know, that's what happens, especially not having Di Natale. I know he didn't play much last season, but him not being there is still a big loss.
Where has he gone? What's he doing now? Do we know?
I'm not sure if he's actually signed with anyone yet. I should double check because I've been so behind on transfers. I was still looking some up today. I only found out today that Bruno Perez had signed for Roma. So there you go. It shows how behind I am, listeners. It's terrible.
I've just looked him up and he's classed as unattached.
There you go.
So,
still looking.
Yes, there is always a room in my Sunday League team for him if he wants to run out on a Sunday morning. If not, I would love to. I'd love to see him do a Luca Toni-esque, one last sort of party for a team, like just come up maybe, or just be, because the experience alone has got to be worth a punt, surely, even if he plays 10, 15 games. But we shall see. We might do a new theme on the pod this year, Di Natale watch, see where he's gone. Let's pick on another team. Let's go to Sampdoria. Who've got a mad president, who, if you haven't seen this, do look up the first show, do look up the Johnny Black painting sketch, and just see if you can see the resemblance. I certainly can. So he's a bit of a madcap chappy, and Sampdoria, another side that a grand old name of Italian football, but once again last season, bit of an underachiever. So what have they done this summer, and what do you think is likely to be their season ahead?
Well, sadly for them, what they've done is sell their best player in Roberto Soriano, and also Joaquin Correa, who was their sort of most promising young player. So
good start.
Yeah, it's not the most promising. Duncan as well. I think is he Ghanaian? I don't want to get it wrong. Yes, he is Ghanaian.
Alfred Duncan, yes. Yeah.
Has also gone to Sassuolo. So, they've lost quite a lot of very good players, and what they've brought in, it's not the most exciting. Guys from Verona, Atalanta, they're all, again, they know the league, but, bringing in a 33-year-old Cagliari isn't going to do anything exciting for the fans. They want, to be pushing top 10 European football, something like that. And more than likely, they'll probably be scrapping it down at the bottom with Udinese and the rest of the pack. So I don't expect anything too exciting from Samp, except for the home games, of course, where there will always be lots of goals and a completely mad president with a scarf half wrapped around his face, which is certainly entertaining.
I'm painting a picture saying black. Do look it up. Trust me, it's a dead ringer. Okay, let's go to who should we pick on next? So many choices. Let's pick on Atalanta, because they're another side that's hard to judge, because again they have they're one of those teams you can never predict their results. One minute you see them play and you think, oh, they look quite decent, and then they go and get humped by someone mid-table. So do you expect them much of the same this season? Mid-table, up and down season? Yeah, again, like you said, difficult to predict, and sadly, much like Samp, they've lost probably their best player, Martin Darun, signed for Middlesbrough. They got a good return on their investment for him, but again, it's a huge loss for a club that size. Don't expect them to do too much beyond fighting mid-table. Excuse me. As for signings in, again, nothing particularly exciting. They've got Palosci in, who had that brief spell at Swansea that didn't really work out, and a guy from Independiente who I've never seen play. Brian, who has the most boring first name but then a very exciting surname, Brian Cabezas, which I probably pronounced horribly wrong, but yeah, hopefully Brian can do something. So if there's any Independiente fans listening, please do let us know how good he is. But yeah, honestly, I don't expect anything too exciting from them. It's the funny thing with Serie A is all those teams sort of in the mid to bottom half of the table. You never expect anything exciting from, and then all of a sudden they pop up with a completely bizarre result out of nowhere and beat a Juve or a Roma, just that one-off time, so you just have to look out for that one result. But yeah, scrapping mid to bottom of the table. Yeah, good kit at least. I keep saying that on every podcast. I've got to stop judging teams on kits. But speaking of teams with nice kits, though, that brings us to Palermo. Lovely pink kit there. I must admit, I know a lot of people like a sponsorless shirt. I'm not really a fan. I think they need a sponsor to offset that pink, but that's another story. What's going on at Palermo? Have they had at least 17 managerial changes in the summer? Has someone put the cat in charge yet? Has the kit man been promoted to stadium manager? They were the running joke last season, so is the word stability the key for them this year?
Absolutely. Maybe some mental health for their owner. But Ballardini is still the manager, who was manager 3 times, I want to say, last season. I'm not sure.
He's still manager now.
He's still manager now.
By the time this goes out tonight,
he's been the manager all summer, and he was for the last couple of games of last season. I think it was 3 times he was employed last season. Or he may have been employed once, then fired, then re-employed, and not sacked, but just replaced. It got very confusing. As for the squad itself, again, another team that's lost. They lost Dybala the season before, and now they've lost Dybala's best mate, Franco Vasquez. They didn't get as much money as they wanted for him. They were talking sort of 30-odd million they wanted, but Palermo aren't in a position to really negotiate. Needed the money. Again, bought in a lot of nothing really exciting kind of players. They did let the old legend that is Gilardino is gone, and he joined Empoli. Funnily enough, 34 years old, still playing, unbelievable. But I expect towards the bottom of the table, if they keep Ballardini for the whole season, which is a big if. Then maybe they can improve and hit that mid-table mark, but nothing more than that.
No, I think I'm inclined to agree. I'm going to group together the 3 promoted sides as one because a lot of people won't know a lot about them. So I believe I'm right in saying we have Pescara, the Dolphins.
Yep.
We have Crotone, or is it Crotona? I never know which way to pronounce that.
I think it's Crotone, but I could be wrong. If anyone's Italian, please do tell me.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And I think we've got Cagliari going back up. So they're the 3 that are promoted this season. So in your best way possible, can you tell us anything about the 3 and which of the 3 you think are most likely to stay up?
I don't know a lot about them, I'll be honest. Trying to get Serie B football to watch over here is very, very difficult. So it's only really what I've read. For all 3, again, it is just try and stay up. Pescara, I believe, is it Pescara or Crotone that Verratti used to be at as a youth player? I can never remember.
That was Pescara.
Yeah, that's it. That's one of the few things I know about them, I'll be honest. The one thing I do know is that Pescara have lost probably their 2 best strikers. Last season's Serie B top goal scorer, Lapadula, has joined Milan. So they'll perhaps struggle for goals. I mean, I assume they would anyway, just because they are a promoted team. So honestly, I probably know about as much as anyone who's never watched Serie A before. So it's exciting for me anyway, because I get to see new players who I don't know a lot about. And they've bought all the sort of no-name, number 76 from Inter Milan and number 83 from Juventus, who you've never seen play a game in your life, just because they need players to fill their squad. So I get to see some of them as well.
I just wonder, because we had last year, didn't we? We had the 2 small Carpi and Frosinone, didn't we, last year?
Yes, yeah.
And they became kind of cult figure clubs. I think one of them, at least, or maybe both, were still alive going into the final few weeks of the season.
Yeah, certainly. It was surprising how long they survived in the league, because people really thought they would just drop out straight away. So that's the big thing this season. Obviously, Cagliari have been up before. I think this might be Pescara's first time in the top flight. I'm not sure.
They were up before. I remember them being in there. I think it was 3 seasons ago now, ish.
Oh, Crotone, that's the team. Sorry,
Crotone,
I knew it was one of them. Yeah, Crotone's first season in the top flight. So they will try and. I mean, even if they do go down, but if they sort of emulated what Carpi and Frosinone did and managed to stay in the fight for as long as they did, that's still seen as a success for them, for those tiny teams, because they are very small little provincial teams, and obviously certain owners of certain big name clubs don't think they should even be allowed to be in Serie A, even if they win Serie B. they think they're too small and don't deserve a place. So there you go.
Yeah. We'll definitely bring those up. Couple of interesting facts for you about a couple of these clubs. Then, so Pescara have got Hugo Campagnaro, who you might remember
Yes, yep.
from Inter Milan. So he's there. They play in the Stadio Adriatico Giovanni Comacchia Stadium. I probably got that horribly wrong. That's a 21,476 capacity stadium, so it's not too bad. Decent. You've got Crotone. I've got a lovely little badge. They won a couple of games pre-season. One of them, they beat Real Fondu Gesu 20-0. And they also beat Real Roca Bernarda 16-0.
Wow.
So they are favourites for Serie A, definitely, with results like that.
The new Gonzalo Higuain is going to pop up then.
Yeah, I'm guessing they've. I'm guessing they played. I would assume they were small-time local teams, but they have a couple of players. Palladino is one of their forwards who you might remember. Rafael Palladino played for Parma.
Oh,
I
vaguely.
think he was at Genoa and Juventus as well a long time ago. So looking at their squad, doing it from memory here, 6-12. They've only got about 23 players by the looks of this squad, so it's quite a small squad. And their stadium it's the Stadio Ezio Schida, only 9,500. So you imagine that's going to be quite a close, intense atmosphere in that stadium. And then finally, as you say, Cagliari, a little bit more experienced at this level. They've got Rafael in goal, and Storari is another goalkeeper. They've got Bruno Alves plays for them. I didn't realise that. Portuguese kung fu expert.
Oh, yes, that was the signing they just made, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So he's on board. They've also got Mauricio Isla, former Juventus man.
Simone Padoin as well, yeah. I mean, they seem to have got more experience than the other teams. But again, Cagliari are a team that are more known, or better known at least, than the other two that have been promoted. So it was perhaps a little bit easier for them. But, yeah.
There's a couple others actually looking at it. They got Daniele De Sena, who's in there. The strike force is what I think might keep them up. Marco Borriello they signed, Diego Farias, and Marco Sau, all kind of experienced 26, 28 and 34-year-old players. So you would expect that they would have a best chance. And they've got a goalkeeper called Colombo. So just one more thing before I leave.
Oh dear.
Only people who've watched Colombo will be getting that reference. Moving swiftly onwards then, that's the promoted clubs. Let's get back to the established clubs. Torino is next on my list. They've just, as you said today, lost Bruno Perez. They've lost Ciro Immobile. But they do have the young lad I like, Belotti, up front still. I think he's still there at the time of recording.
Yep.
So again, what do you sort of make of them? Because they are very much Juventus's sort of ginger stepchild in that. So what do you make of that?
I don't think they'd appreciate that, but yeah.
No.
They've got in a few decent players actually. They got in Adam Ljajic, which I was very sad about. They didn't make that a permanent deal. Very, very sad about that. Di Silvestri as well, experienced player, knows the league. Rossatini. They also got the Greek guy whose name I always butcher, Panagiotis Taxididis.
Taxididis,
there we
one,
go. Yeah, I didn't completely butcher it. So they brought in some decent players. It's really the season for Belotti to shine. They lost Kamil Glick and they lost Perez, which is huge, obviously. So the defence will need some rejiggling. But they're one of those teams who you always feel with just one or two players they could really make a push for a European spot. Torino, they've got enough ability, but Belotti I hope is going to have a really big season because he's not just it's not just huge for Torino, it's huge for Italy as well. He's the next big hope in terms of a striker. There is even a rumour. I know he's been linked to lots of clubs in Italy, but Torino is one of them. But I'll list all the other ones off as well. That Balotelli is a possible target for them. Because are you
trying to tell me that Balotelli wouldn't fancy Wolves?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of Italians there actually. To be fair,
Walter Zenga as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on. I rudely interrupted there.
No, it's quite all right. There is even a chance of seeing Mario playing there, who actually I think would play quite well with Belotti. But No, I'm always excited to watch Torino. They're always a good team, and the Turin derby is always great. But the defence is the big worry. Losing Perez and Glick is huge for them, so that's going to be the main concern.
Agreed. Two teams. I'll put these two together as well because they've both got very similar kits. I'm back to kits again, but they're also both very similar size. Genoa and Bologna. Two sides that again I never really know what to expect. They're both kind of mid-table. They're both a bit up and down. Have either of them particularly impressed you with anything they've done in the summer, or do you think either of them have regressed with players they might have lost?
No, not really. I mean, Bologna made the Donza move permanent from Cagliari, he was there on loan. Whether he stays there, there's interest from other clubs. Is very talked about across Europe. The really exciting one is Adam, the Bulgarian midfielder who played in the Euros. Sorry,
this
folks.
is for Bologna.
For Bologna. Adam, it's not Nagy, it's not how you pronounce it, but it's something
I will frantically look it up. I think I know the guy you mean, yeah.
I think you pronounce it Adam Nodge.
Nudge, yeah. That's right, yeah, that sounds right.
He's very young, but he really impressed me in the Euros.
It's
not
spelled,
for Bulgaria,
Hungary.
That's it, yeah.
It's spelled Nagy, but I think you're right. I think it's pronounced Nudge or Nadge, or
So I'm really interested to see how we do in the league because I thought he was really, really good in the Euros. As for Genoa, again, they are much like Bologna, one of those teams who you think they're okay. They got in Christian and Saudi from I'm sure a couple of people know from Zenit. They got in Gentiletti as well, older centre back, but from Lazio, very experienced, knows the league. They also got in a guy I know you've probably seen a lot of, Ocampos.
Yes, Lucas Ocampos.
Yeah, so again, one of those teams. Mid-table, I don't expect anything more from them, but they've both got a few exciting young players who will be decent to watch, at least in their games. But yeah, nothing more than mid-table from either of them, I don't expect.
No, agreed. They've also Luxalt. That's a permanent deal from Inter now, I believe. Who's a player I must admit I quite like. I've never been sure. Ninkovic is a good signing as well from Chievo, who we'll come on to in a second. And then looking at the deals that Bologna have done, a couple that stand out: Simone Verdi from AC Milan, and Bellerin Shamaili, which I think that's the ex-Napoli boy, isn't it, from Galatasaray? Yeah. So that might be decent. And they got a young goalkeeper who a lot of people won't have heard about called Filippo Parocchini, who's come from Lecce on a free transfer. Apparently thought very, very highly of him. So be interested to see if he gets a nod in goal or not. And Luca Rizzo is the other one from Sampdoria they've got in. That's their record signing, actually, 5.1 million. So, which sounds like an absolute steal nowadays with all the money it's floating around. But we shall see. Let's talk about Chievo, because the Flying Donkeys, best nickname in football has got to be, another side that grossly sort of underachieved last season, were fighting down the bottom end of the table for a long period. Probably only really got out of it because other teams were worse than they were, rather than their own good play. Are they going to kick on this season? Do you expect them to be better?
No, I mean, much the same. As you say, Ninkovic has obviously gone to Genoa. They brought in a guy from Liège whose name is completely Mpuku. That's it.
Yes.
Who I've seen a little bit of. Looks decent, but again, money is the real problem. Lots and lots of free transfers in. Lots of young players, and it is just filling squad places. Again, another mid-table. Can they do it? How long will they last there? The only one who people might remember from last season is Antonio Flores from Sassuolo.
Oh, yes.
Yes, has gone to Chievo, so a little bit of experience there, but mostly a lot of young players coming into the club. They also got Sorrentino, who he's 37. I thought he was older than
keeper,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so I actually thought he was a bit older than that. But yeah, so, they brought in one or two senior players, but mostly very young, lots of inexperienced players. So again, mid-table, probably should be alright. Shouldn't really be a relegation threat with the teams that have come up. I expect it will be mainly those three, and probably Palermo and Udinese will be the ones scrapping it out right down the bottom. But yeah, no high flights from the Flying Donkeys anyway.
No, agreed. And the other team to wrap into that conversation, I guess, is Empoli, who again sort of raided of their bigger talents. A season of struggle ahead again, probably you'd expect.
Yeah, lost Tonelli, lost Mario Rui as well, and some of their sort of young, exciting talent is they've had to loan a few out to bring in some more senior players to try and help the squad. They brought in some guy from Corinthians, who they're talking about quite a lot actually, Mateus Pereira. Brazilian,
Yes.
very young player. I've again never seen him play. Just under £2 million they spent on him, but there's a lot of hype around him. How much you see of him, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. Again, Empoli, you know what you're going to get. Mid-table, nothing too exciting, but they will always give you a difficult game. Always very well organised. Difficult to beat. So mid-table, nothing more. And sadly will be one of those clubs that if for example this young Brazilian guy does work out, expect him to be plucked away from there in a season or two.
Yeah. He's Perez thought very highly in Brazil. He's only 18, and he's sort of deemed to be one of the next big talents. And I see they've brought back good old Alberto Gilardino. He's there.
Yeah,
For the
well,
ride,
him and Big Mac, why not go for it?
Oh God! Wow, what a tasty strike force that is. Also got in Pasquale, the left back from Fiorentina, and Federic Veseli, who's a right back from FC Lugano in Switzerland. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on. And one of those aforementioned Juventus players no one's ever heard of, Marcel Buchel, who's I think of Austrian descent, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how he gets on. I've not heard a lot about him, if I'm honest. Okay, so that's most of the teams done. That conveniently leaves out the two Milan clubs, which is...
I did notice you'd done that.
Yeah, see what I did there? We'll leave the best till last, so we'll start with AC Milan. Now, there's been a lot going on in Italy as far as takeovers go, and nothing bigger than the two Milan clubs. There's a lot going on with regards to what's been going on at boardroom level over the summer. So, starting with Milan, what's happened in their boardroom this summer?
Where to start? I mean, it's the sort of... basically, China has bought Milan. Essentially,
it's a lovely way of putting it.
Is an easy way to put it. That goes for both clubs. The Milan takeover has been sort of this ongoing affair for I don't know now, probably 2 years, might even be longer than that. There was Mr. B, there was all these different people coming in. Finally, it's been done.
Mr. Bean? Oh, Mr. B, of course.
Mr. B, sorry, yeah. Mr.
That would have been better.
Actually, Mr. Bean is probably quite accurate, but that was Berlusconi. He's gone now. Berlusconi still is involved to a certain degree, but it's now been taken over by a Chinese, some faceless company of God knows what the name of it is. Montella is now in charge as manager. The problem is that this has all taken so long that they haven't really had any sort of strategy on what they're doing with the team, who's coming in, who's going out. They've brought in some players. They brought in Lapadula, as I said, from Pescara. He's 26 years old. He had a very, very good season in Serie B. Whether he can transfer that to Serie A, obviously, is to be seen. But the expectation is there. They brought in Jose Sousa from Besiktas, who I'm sure lots of people will know or at least have seen play. But other than that, there's really been no ins, and the outs that they've lost. The Torres is gone. Obviously, Simone Verdi, as you said, has left. El Shaarawy is at Roma on a permanent, although that was kind of done. Menez has left on a free. Kevin Prince Boateng, who came back briefly, has left. Alessandro Matti has left. And the club really, it's not in a complete mess, but there's no plan for what's going ahead forwards, and I think Montella feels kind of lost at the moment, and because everything's still trying to be organised board level and sorted out, the team itself is going to suffer this season. They don't have any European competition to worry about, so that's one plus, so they can just concentrate on playing once a week. How they'll do, I don't know. It's a real shame, as much as obviously I'm not a Milan fan because I'm an Inter fan. Serie A suffers without both sides, and certainly Milan as well, without being one of the big teams contesting for the title. So I hope that it gets speedily fixed and they can actually start challenging and pushing again for the title, because it really does weaken the league itself. And it's just nice when you see the sort of famous old names up there. I mean, they'll still play well, and you obviously got exciting talents like Donnarumma and Romagnoli, who went there last season, the young players. You've still got Bonaventura, Montalivo, so there's still talent there, but I feel really sorry for Montella because he's kind of walked into a club that's in serious transition, and he's probably not really sure of his place.
Agreed. And a couple of old names gone. Alex released on a free. Philip Mexes. I'm sure James Horncastle will be delighted. He's finally gone.
That's one that has pleased Milan fans.
Yes,
He's finally gone the amount of money he was getting. Yeah.
Finally gone. Christian Abbiati is finally retired at 38. And the Phantom Menace has gone. That surprised me. On a free transfer to Bordeaux, I think it's a really good signing for them.
Yeah.
Took me by surprise. Milan are basically paying his wages for a year and have let him go on a free, so that seems like an odd one. And Kevin Prince Boateng to Las Palmas, that was another bizarre one. But yeah, Menace, real surprise, that one. Yeah, interesting. Stephen Shaarawy, of course, to Roma, that's a permanent deal as well. So yeah, in transition, one name to look out for. You might not know this, John, yourself, but Gustavo Gomez, who they've signed from Lanús. They just so happen to be a team I follow in Argentina a little bit because I am.
Well, what a surprise!
Because I am, in fact, very sad and have no life. But yes, Lanús are a team I follow in Argentina, and he's very, very good centre back. Very, very talented. Composed on the ball, likes to play, decent in the air. He's Paraguayan. I think he's an international, if I'm not mistaken, but very, very useful player. And at that age, I think 7 million quid is a decent bit of business. So watch him be terrible. And just on that analogy, Mr. Bit, I could think of nothing better than just sort of this figure sort of walking across the Milan pitch, sort of going, "Hello, Mr. Bean." It's nothing better than that image of the.
I think that's what Berlusconi does at home, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be quality. So I've saved the best or worst for last, whichever you prefer. Internazionale, your team and mine, John. We are long-suffering Inter fans, as well as a question from one of our listeners, which we'll come on to. They started the season, or pre-season, I should say, kind of in disarray. Mancini was there. Then there was all this business about the Pirelli tyres deal, where essentially, if anyone doesn't know the story, there was a long-running dispute about the new owners that I'm sure, John, you'll touch on in a minute, came in. There was a rumour about the sponsorship being Chinese. So Pirelli said, we're not having that. So they made the players tape over their Pirelli sponsorship on their training tops. Then Mancini sort of essentially called out the board saying, I need players. They then went and lost to Tottenham. I think it was 6-0, wasn't it? I think it was 6-0.
6-1.
6-1, sorry.
We got one.
Oh, good. They then released controversial yellow socks, which I actually really like. That's a real buy story. And now they've got Frank de Boer. So off you go, John. Where the hell do you start with the summer of Inter Milan?
Yeah. Again, much like the other Milan club, very confusing. There was rumours last season of a takeover. Different people looking at it. Eric Fourier, the current, I believe he still might be the CEO. I'll check as we're talking about it. At the time, anyway, CEO was looking to sell. And it wasn't really sure where it was going to go. Then it all went quiet. As you say, summer. Some moves were made. There was talks of other moves being made. There was exciting talk. There was like, Yaya Toure might be coming back to, might be coming to play under Mancini again. And it was like, okay. Mancini's had a bit of time there. He can sort his squad out and settle it. A terrible pre-season, and then he just walks out of nowhere. It was just bizarre. All this was going on at the same time as the takeover. Again, another Chinese company, the Sunning Holdings Group, who are partially owned by some other company. All very confusing. Anyway, in the business sense, Inter have been bought out, now owned by someone else. Mancini then, it was a mutual agreement. I think Inter were fed up. The talk is that there's a rumour going round, apparently, that the people who bought out the club have strong links to Kia Jorchabian, the agent, who does not get on very well with Mancini. I believe he was Tevez's agent. He might still be Tevez's agent.
He is indeed.
Because the talk of João Mario coming to Inter, he's also João Mario's agent. And funnily enough, he's also Frank de Boer's agent. So
I feel like I should go dun dun dun.
Yeah, obviously unconfirmed, but there was talk that Jorchabian, Mancini, new owners, lots of things not going well, and then Frank de Boer came in, which was a real surprise. It was, I remember talking to you about it. Mancini's gone. Oh God, who are we going to get? It's so late now. The season's about to start. And then, Frank de Boer was not on, my thoughts of someone to come in. Very pleased he has. It's exciting. Fourier is still the president, sorry, yeah. So, what he'll bring to the club, it's tough to say because, he was a great player and by all accounts, he's been a very good manager. I know we got a question about him and tactics and whatever, which we'll go into in a minute. But the problem he's got is that, again, much like AC Milan and Montella having issues there, he's come in very late on and has to look at the squad, see what he's going to do with it, and also make any changes or transfers that he wants in a very, very short space of time, which is not an easy thing to do. They have got in good players already. They got in Kandrova, which was a fantastic signing. Surprised no one else went for him. He's a very, very good player. I know he's 29, but he's really, really good. Again, another player who had a great Euros. They brought in Ava Banega, free transfer. How they managed to pull that off and no one else went for him.
Oh, love Banega.
Yeah, he has looked very impressive in pre-season. They made the Brozovic deal permanent. Which was nice because there was lots of talk of him leaving. There's still links with him away from the club, but I think now they should be able to keep hold of him. And they also brought in Kanararkin as well from Fenerbahce, which defence was a bit of an issue, particularly in the fullback area last season. So they've got the good signings in. The problem is, are they the signings De Boer wants? Is the real question. Obviously, a good manager can work with good players regardless, but it's whether they're the players he wants at the club. He said himself that it will take him 4 months to get them playing the football that he wants there. But again, last season they were top of the table till Christmas, and they had one of the best defences in the league. So if he can hit the ground running, Inter have at least got a chance. They've got one of the best strikers in the league, in Icardi. He's still there. They brought in some players like Kandreva and like Ava Banega who can fire the bullets for him. Perisic had a very, very good Euros. His problem has always been consistency. If he can do that, then fantastic. And again, they've got the players there to mount a challenge. It's just how quickly De Boer can adapt to the league is the real question.
Yeah. And just on Icardi, we touched on him during the Napoli chat. Do you expect that talisman to be? Do you expect it to stick around? I mean, there's so much talk of potential interest. Obviously, Wanda's been waving her magic wand all over Europe this summer and talking about links with lots of different places. But he seems like a man who, almost sort of is a cult figure at Inter, and he seems like a man who I would suggest would want to stay. He's the skipper, but do you think there's a money talk situation? Because for me, Napoli are still quite light, and he does fit the bill of what they might want. Yeah,
I mean that is an issue, and obviously Napoli do have money to spend. The question is what the new owners want, and how much they've talked to the players, or how much they've told De Boer, who is now talked to the players. Because if they're coming in and saying, we're not here just to buy the club and just to make money off football. We're here to really improve Inter and make them champions again and invest heavily in the club and actually invest on the pitch. Then that can make players stay. By all accounts, he's very happy in Milan. So there's no reason for him to leave. I honestly think to move to another club within Italy, it would have had to have been Juventus. I know Napoli is a big club, but I can't quite see it. The only other place I could see him leaving is if a big Premier League club or one of the big boys from La Liga came in for him, which I don't think is going to happen. So I've fingers crossed he stays. He's certainly good enough to go and make one of those moves. But I just think if it was Juve, then he would have gone. Napoli, it's a slight step up from last season, but in real terms, it's probably just a sideways move, if you know what I mean. So I'm hoping he stays and that De Boer can convince him.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, I think, for Inter fans to sort of ride out these next few weeks, the transfer window, see what happens. I'm quite excited by. I can't work out or can't find out whether he's gone back on loan or not. But they signed a young lad I was talking to you pre-pod from Pescara. Who's a bit of a legend of mine. I really like the look of a young centre forward by the name of Gianluca Caprari from Pescara, who's kind of a number 10. Really good little player. He's only 22 for memory, and I don't know whether he's going back on loan or not. I can't quite find out. So I hope he stays because I quite like him. And a few of their youngsters actually impressed me in pre-season in that American tournament. Too many to mention, but a few of them looked pretty good. There was one in particular who I must find out his name while we're recording this. But I'm kind of excited. I have to get your thoughts on the kit as well. I really like. When it first got released, we all went, "Oh, yellow socks, not sure." But with the yellow print on the back, I think it looks really nice.
I was very much, I'm not convinced, but then when I saw it on players, I do really like it. I didn't like it at first, but when I saw it on the pitch, it actually does look great.
It does work, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm glad you've come around to my sort of obsession with bright colours, but and massive season for the likes of Jeffrey Kondogbia, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
He's going to be key if they're going to push on this season. So yes, I can't find this Interla. I think it might have been Palazzi, perhaps, but there was a player who played pre-season that I thought really looked, or was it DeMarco? Anyway, somebody looked very good. So there you go. There's some insight for you. Somebody looked good for interim pre-season. And amazingly, Andrea Ranocchia is still an Inter Milan player. Yeah, make of that what you will. Anyway, right, that is pretty much our preview done. So that's gone through every club.
Yep.
We've got a couple of quick questions to get through, so I shall waste no time at all. Mm-hmm. Do you want to read out Jimmy's question?
Yeah, sure. He was basically talking about Mancini under Inter Milan, changing the squad around a lot, very rarely put out the same side, with the exception of one or two players. And do we expect more consistency under De Boer? Now, obviously, I'm excited about De Boer coming in, and I know you are as well, Chris. But I freely admit I haven't seen a lot of Ajax, so I went and asked our Drew about this. Obviously, watching a lot of Dutch football, and he said that De Boer very rarely changes his side, likes consistency, will keep it, but the one thing you will get with him is he will give younger players a chance, and if they play well enough, then they will get games. So I expect there will be a few weeks of sort of juggling about trying to find the right team, right balance, formation, that kind of thing. But once he settles on it, maybe it might not be till sort of October time, but he'll settle, he'll find his team and get the balance right, and then that will be the side that you'll see playing week in, week out, which I think is much better than chopping and changing constantly, because that was very frustrating under Mancini.
And Jimmy, of course, an Inter follower like us. Just before I get the next question, I found out the two players I was impressed with pre-season. For those of you that are dying to know, Andrea Pinamonti.
Yes.
17-year-old attacker. I like the look of him. And the one I really caught my eye was Loris Sonta, 19-year-old sort of creative midfielder. Who was born in a place that is just so cool. I have to read it out. Bassano del Grappa. sounds a bit more appealing than Plymouth, for example. I wonder if maybe one of those or two of those might break in, because De Boer's quite fond of using younger players. So
yes,
we shall see. We did have a couple of other questions, so I'll get to those quickly. We had one from Drew, not our Drew, but another Drew, at D Husser 89 or Husser. Hope it's Husser. Any chance of a return to, in brackets, near the top for Milan? Seems there was a lot of troubling reports this summer during the sale of the club. So you've touched on what's gone on. Would you have any money on the sort of chances of Milan possibly going up the table again?
It sounds so bad, doesn't it? A top 10 finish is probably good for Milan, which sounds ridiculous when you think of the size of the club. There's just so much to be sorted out. They've got good players, but whether you can keep every single one of those players fit all season long and firing is the real problem. I don't know. It's difficult. Montella's a good manager. I really like him. And he seems to get the best out of players, but I think it's a stretch too far. I would say I'll be optimistic for him, and I'll give him the top 6.
That's very generous of you.
Yeah, it's very generous.
Because I don't think we'd say the same if we were talking about a club in North London who wear white against someone else. So, or you might, but I'm heavily biased, so I wouldn't. Right. Last question we had was from Adler Imherzen, or Adler Imherzen, I don't know. At Adlerimherzen. Crikey, I've really butchered that. Sorry, Adler. I do apologise. Anyway, predictions for Serie A. Even top 5 seems to be a foregone conclusion. Is there a plucky underdog story for the impartial? I'm going to rope this in with the closing question I have for you because I've asked all the people who've done this. So yeah, following on from Adler's question there. Who is your top? Who wins the league? Who qualifies for the Champions League? Who's in Europa League, and who do you think goes down? And maybe just a surprise package to look out for.
Oh, I can't see past Juve. I know it's a bit boring, but I just think they've by far got the best squad and they've got one of the best managers in the league. As for the other two for the Champions League spots, I think Roma. I'm going to be really bold and say that Inter will sneak third over Napoli.
Ooh, I like it.
I just think that Napoli are going to be a little bit short up front, and I'm not convinced they've got enough time to find the right striker to come in there. That will be my top 3. And then I would say, Milan have got to be in there because I just put them in top 6. Fiorentina and Napoli would be the other 2 for the Europa League. As for the 3 to go down, it's kind of boring, but probably... No, actually, you know what? I'm going to say Cagliari will stay up, but Pescara and Crotone will go down along with... Udinese. There you go. I committed. Oh, that was horrible. As for surprise package, it's probably not a huge surprise, but if there is to be a team out of nowhere to really push for the title, who you wouldn't expect, one of the usual suspects, I think Fiorentina are the one team that could do it. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, it wouldn't be fair for me not to give mine, would it?
So no, go for it.
I suppose I've got to do this and put my head on the chopping block. Juve, no surprises, win the league for me by an absolute street. I'm going into second. I'm going really bold.
Very brave.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go into second ahead of... I think Napoli third for me. Fourth, I'm going to go Lazio.
Oh, wow. That's really, really brave.
Really bold. Fifth, I'm going to go Roma. So that's your top 5. Milan 6th, probably Fiorentina around about 7th, somewhere like that. So I've gone really balls out there.
Wow.
Probably stupidly. To go down, I'm going to go with, sadly, Empoli. Just worry about them this season. And much like you, I can't... Crotone, I think, are doomed. I've got to be honest, I just can't see them staying up. I think Pescara will have enough, and I think Cagliari will have enough. So I'm going to go with... Oh, God, this is tough, isn't it? Atalanta. I'm going to go with Atalanta. I know. I'm not sure they've got enough.
I really thought you were going to say Palermo, to be honest.
Well, Palermo, yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on whether they actually keep faith with the coach for more than 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, they are the obvious ones. But what are predictions if we don't stick our neck on the line? So, and the only other, as far as a dark horse or a surprise package, I'm actually going to pick Palermo weirdly as a surprise package, if not Pescara. I think both could do some decent things this season if they get things settled. And a player to look out for, can we both agree that Ever Banega is definitely going to be worth watching in Inter?
Oh, absolutely. He will be worth watching. I think this should be a very big season for Belotti as well at Torino. They might be a team who perhaps surpass expectations. And then all the sort of the younger players, the Bernardeschi's and Berardi, players like that, this is their time to really push on a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about them. They need to start doing it consistently now.
Yep, agreed. One thing's for sure is you and I will, of course, be across it all season, as indeed, I'm sure all the Hipsters teams keep an eye on each other's leagues, but you will continue to be our Serie A enthusiast. And
I might be up to date on all the transfers by the time it starts tomorrow.
you never know. just in light of obviously it's a preview pod. The first fixtures, there's 2 tomorrow and there's 4 on Sunday. Obviously today being Friday, Roma, Udinese, and Juve Fiorentina on the opening day. That's a nice little juicy one to get us going. Sunday you've got Milan host Torino, Atalanta host Lazio, Bologna at home to Crotone, Chievo face Inter, Sampdoria go to Empoli, Genoa home to Cagliari, Palermo host Sassuolo, and Pescara Napoli. I believe rounds off the weekend. There isn't one on Monday, is there? No.
That's it.
There is your weekend. So yes, do keep across Serie A, of course. If you've got any questions, as usual, ping them across to John. What's your Twitter again, John? I do forget this.
At jwelsh84.
There you go. So any questions you've got about the Serie A, or indeed the coefficient, because John loves those questions.
Oh, God, no.
Although it looks like that's going out the window, so you might
I hate that even more than bloody club takeovers. That's so confusing.
even more rough. And by the end of the season, there's a good chance John will be the manager of Palermo. So get your money on that. But
that's definitely worth a bet. Yeah.
God yes. Right, that'll do it for us then, John. We'll keep across it as usual and keep the questions going. Oh, goodness me, John, I've forgotten somebody's question.
Oh, dear.
Goodness me, and it's from our very own Kat. She would shoot me.
Come on.
She would shoot me if I didn't ask you, so I have to ask you the question. But right, Kat's question was, it's about Palermo, actually, so good stuff. She said, simply this question: will Palermo scrape by and stay in Serie A this year, especially with a potential new owner and with a manager who's previously been sacked for player confrontation issues? It sort of seemed doomed from the start. So what a perfect way to round off on Palermo. What do you reckon to Kat's question there?
I think they'll just scrape it. Zamperini's so nuts that doesn't matter. Just after last season, the fact that they managed to survive, they're who is it? You know, like Sunderland in the Premier League, every year it's like, yeah, they're going to get relegated, and then they just wheel out one of those managers out of nowhere and just nick it and stay in. Zamperini is just so insane that I don't think you can remove it from Serie A. It's too important. You need him there. So yeah, they'll just scrape it. But I don't expect as many sackings this season as there were last season. But I do expect some.
There you go, Kat. Sorry, I didn't mean to forget you. And we should say a big shout out to Kat, as this is our last preview. She's redesigned our website and our graphics, and they look awesome. So thank you in advance to Kat. And she will, of course, be part of the crew, as indeed will Kelly and Gaz and VAR for the coming season. So thank you to you all as well. Right, that'll do us, John. So thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Not a problem, mate.
And as usual, you can follow us at the FH Podcast for all of our. You can go back and listen to all of our previews in various lengths, shapes, and sizes. We've covered all the leagues. The English Breakfast will return on Sunday with myself and Ross, and maybe even Danny, if I can convince him. Where we cover all things EFL and Premier League, and of course the main podcast. We will return on Monday. Aren't you all excited? I say Monday. You'll probably get it on Tuesday because we record very late. But we will be back next week with our usual roundup of the weekend's action from leagues getting underway or from leagues in their second week. So do stay across it. As usual, give us a like on the old YouTube page, subscribe if you haven't already, and also via iTunes. And keep it tuned to the Football Hipsters. We'll be in your ear all season. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you again, John. And we will speak to you very soon. Enjoy your Serie A season.